We're falling out, we have reached disaster. Don't know where we're gonna be after. And we do it all again and again.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about how to start budgeting. So an introduction to budgeting, a budgeting 101, whatever you want to call it, but that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So before we get into it, I wanted to quickly talk about my nails because every time I post one of these videos showing a new manicure or whatever, I get a lot of questions. So these are actually nail strips, nail like polished strips from Color Street. One of my cousins recently started selling them, so I asked her to like sample one out, and these are Tokyo lights. I'm not usually a glitter person, but I have to say these are really, really pretty. So if you want to pick up some Color Street from her, I will have her link down below. I did already pick up a few more colors because they just work so perfectly. And if you've been watching some of my videos like the last week or so, you've probably seen that my nails have not been done in a long time. The last time I went to go get my nails done, we're in July. I got a no chip in July for my friend's wedding. And so I've had no chip on my nails since then. I just don't have the time. Like with 2 kids, a business, I don't have time. And when I tried these out, I was like completely sold. I don't think I'll ever go get my nails done again. I don't think I'll ever like try and paint them again because these were so easy. You don't have to worry about like letting them dry. If Mila or Macy needs me or something, I could just go ahead and help them. Again, it's super easy. I definitely recommend checking out some videos. There's so many on YouTube explaining like how to do it. I watched a bunch, but anyway, I will have a link down below if you guys want to pick them up. I want to mention it because again, I get a ton of questions about nail colors, so I figured I would mention it. Again, these are Tokyo lights, and I have another pack of like 4 coming pretty soon. So you guys will see a bunch of new nail stuff going forward. Okay, so I wanted to also start off by saying that there are many different ways to budget. So you guys are going to see me using a planner. This is an Erin Condren monthly planner, and I use this for our family and my personal business budget. So I use this for both. But this is not the only way to budget. So keep that in mind. I know that you can use an Excel sheet. I know that you can use apps. I'm just personally sharing what I use and what I have found that works for me, and that is using paper, pen, and stickers. So that is what I do. But again, finances are very personal, so you have to figure out what works best for you, and that may not be the system that I use. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm hoping a lot of the like concepts that I'm bringing up will be beneficial regardless, but I just wanted to quickly say that. Okay, so all the items that you guys will see aside from the planner are from my Etsy shop. I do have an Etsy shop where I sell budget stickers. I have like planning stickers as well, and then I have some budget printables that you can print on regular paper and use for budgeting as well. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. Okay, so when it comes to budgeting, the first thing that I did, and a lot of what I'm gonna share is like my actual step-by-step process. So when Jason and I started budgeting almost 4 years ago? Yeah, almost 4 years ago. The first thing that I did was I started just randomly tracking some of our expenses because up until that point, we were not keeping track of what we were spending on groceries, what our bills were. Like we were paying everything, we had enough money to do everything, but we weren't really keeping track of what things cost and how much was going out every month, how much we were saving every month. And so I believe I started budgeting or started like wanting to start budgeting in the middle of March. So I knew, okay, I'm not gonna like put together a budget in the middle of the month. That just would be a little goofy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start tracking my expenses in like a monthly view like this, and I will create a budget, like an official budget in April. But I wanted to start the process of tracking expenses because I knew that I would need somewhere to start. And it's really hard to come up with a budget number for groceries or whatever it may be if you don't know what if you don't know what you're currently spending. So the first thing that I did is I took some stickers because again, I'm a sticker person, and I just started putting down anything that came up. So These are all expense tracking stickers that I use. I have a whole little key here. So anything in green would be income, groceries would be pink, gas for our cars would be in yellow, household would be gray, anything other, so like a miscellaneous type of thing would be in purple, bills would be in blue, anything that is unbudgeted, which would not apply in this situation, would be in orange, and then anything for eating out would be in peach. So I kind of brought us to a blank page here. November's obviously not started yet, but I wanted to bring us here so that you weren't super overwhelmed when I started talking about everything. But just to give you guys an example, like this is October right now, and this is how we're tracking our expenses. So you can see anything in the peach would be eating out, the pink would be groceries, and so on. So I do this even now, but I definitely recommend that if you're starting new, let's say it's the middle of November, you want to start budgeting, but you're like, you know what, I'll create a budget in December. Let me start like getting an idea of what we spend. I would suggest starting to track expenses here. So let's say your mortgage comes out on, let's say the 18th. So you can put your mortgage in. And I'm just gonna kind of walk you through this because I feel like it's important to see that. Let's say your mortgage is $900. I wish, right? It would be nice to have a mortgage that's only $900. So let's say that is on the 18th. Then let's say you get an internet bill and that is $90. And you got that on the 24th. So just to start putting those in there as the month goes on. That way, when you're creating your budget for December, you have a better idea of what you need to budget. Of course, your mortgage will stay the same. Internet should probably stay the same, but there's going to be things like eating out or groceries or gas for your cars. And you may not know what those amounts, what you need to budget for those amounts. And so doing this part where you're like tracking before you start a budget would definitely be beneficial. Now, I know that this might seem overwhelming and you're like, how do you track every single expense? And in the beginning, I think for a lot of people, budgeting in general is really difficult because you just feel overwhelmed by everything. And trust me, I felt the same exact way, but you get used to it and it takes time to get used to it. So don't feel bad if you're like, this isn't coming naturally, or man, am I like really not like wanting to do this? That's completely normal, but the more you do it, the easier it will be. Now, the way that I like to track my expenses is I keep every single receipt from when we purchase anything. And Jason's kind of like trained to do this as well. I have a whole bin in my office that says receipts. And so as soon as he buys something from the store, he brings them in and puts them in that bin. I keep receipts in my wallet, and then when I'm ready to track expenses, I'll bring those into my office and track expenses. But it's kind of a learned thing. You definitely have to ease your way into it, and I definitely think like before you even start budgeting, doing this will definitely give you a better picture of what you need to do in terms of budgeting. I think this could eliminate a lot of the growing pains that you have with budgeting, because the first couple of months, you're definitely not going to be on budget when it comes to a lot of things. So doing this can help a little bit more. And then hopefully you're not discouraged when at the end of the month and you compare your actuals to your budget and you're completely over. So anyway, that is the first thing that I always do. Again, that will give you a really good indication of where to, like what you need to budget for each category. So next, the next step that I normally do in my budgeting process is I create a draft budget. Again, I do everything in my planner, but I do like to create a draft before I put anything in my planner, just so that me and Jason can kind of work things out, figure out what our priorities are and all of that. So again, I mentioned this before, but I do have printables in my shop. These are the November ones. So this is a draft November budget and then a draft sinking funds. I will talk about sinking funds at the end of the video because I don't want to confuse you guys a ton, but I do have these available in my shop. And so I like to sit down and put in what I think our income will be, put in our expenses, and get an idea of where we're at. Now, when you do this, there may be a situation where you are not making enough to cover your expenses. And in that situation, you're gonna have to find ways to cut. That's why doing this draft budget's really nice, because you can make it like you know, really messy. You can scratch things out. And then the budget that you actually put in your planner will be your final budget, the one that you do not change, the one that you try to stick to. And it's not messy, it looks cute. For me, having something that looks cute keeps me interested. And so I really need these two separate things. So again, I create this draft budget. I normally do it, and then I'll sit down with Jason and say, like, is there anything that you think of like that needs to be done in November? Do you want to do anything to the house? Do we need anything extra? So we'll sit down, talk about it, see what our priorities are for the month, and then I will sit down and do my normal final budget. So again, that will be in my planner. So let me just show you. This is my October budget. So you can kind of see what that looks like. I personally like to split out my expenses by variable expenses and fixed expenses. This is a 7x9 planner, so if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have enough space. But I like to do that because it makes it easier to track. I know my fixed expenses will not change, so I don't have to worry about having an actual and an over and under. And again, all of these stickers are from my Etsy shop if you want to pick some up. But that is my final budget, and this is something that rarely changes. I rarely go in and change this because I feel like the more you do that, the more you can manipulate it, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to take money away from us because I like decide, oh, I want to get something new for the month. So I try to stick to this as much as possible. Of course, there's things that come up, and that's why we have the unbudgeted spot there. But for the most part, we try to stick to this as much as possible. Now, a problem that a lot of people have with budgeting is they feel restricted. Like, oh, I can't do anything now that I have a budget. And a lot of people say that having a budget really gives you permission to spend. If you've ever heard that, that's a very common thing that a lot of people say about budgeting. And that's the truth. You can see in our budget, we have a lot of things that are not necessities. We have eating out that's $200. That's definitely not something that you need, but both me and Jason love to eat out, so that is something that we have in there. We also have like my eyelashes. I get my eyelashes done, you know, once or twice a month, and that's definitely not something we need, but I love doing it because it makes my life a lot easier. We have allowances, so every single month, Jason and I both get $100 that we can spend on whatever we want, no questions asked. We also have like home decor. We also have household was more money this month because I wanted to get a new Dyson vacuum. So we're not restricted because of our budget. But the thing is, we're trying to be intentional. And so sitting down, creating a plan for the month financially, it makes it so that we are still accomplishing our financial goals, but we are giving ourselves permission to spend our money the way that we want to and not just wondering where did it go. So again, I know that with budgeting, a lot of people feel like, oh no, I'm not gonna be able to do what I want. I'm not gonna be able to go and get coffee. I get coffee every single day, and I am fine with that because I put together a plan and I know that I'm not damaging our future because of it. So I just wanted to say that really quickly. So after you create your final budget, next comes tracking your expenses. So I kind of already talked about this before when I was saying that you should do this the beginning step so you can get an idea of where to even start when it comes to putting together a budget. But I track all of our expenses. I do that in my monthly view. I use my expense tracking stickers here. And one step that I did not mention before is that this is a new thing that I've been doing a lot lately, is I am scanning all of our receipts using an app called Fetch. So Fetch Rewards, I will have it linked down below. I've talked about it before on like Instagram and a couple of my day in the lives, but basically it's an app that you scan all of your receipts. You can do grocery, you can do gas, you can do like if you're buying stuff at Home Goods, you can scan anything. You get points for doing it. And then you get gift cards for your favorite stores. So I get gift cards for Dunkin' Donuts so I can get coffee. You can also do like Home Goods, or I think they have like American Eagle and all of these other stores. And so it's not much. You don't get a ton of points for signing up or for scanning your receipts. But if you get a free coffee every month or so, like that's good enough for me. Again, it saves us a little bit of money here and there. So I definitely recommend doing that if you want some, you know, free coffee or whatever here and there. There's one mom that I watch on YouTube that she actually bought like a whole new wardrobe for her kids or for one of her kids, using the app because she saved up her points for a while and was able to buy all of his winter clothes. So again, it's not much. If you're trying to get something like every week, it's not gonna happen, but it's definitely something fun that you can do if you're, you know, saving them up. And you're doing nothing extra. You're just scanning your receipts. So I feel like it's a really fun thing. So after you track your expenses, after you have everything here, that's when we get to the weekly check-in. And I created the weekly check-in, oh man, I think it was a couple years ago now, just because I got so fed up with every single month putting together a budget and then getting to like the middle or even the end of the month and being like, what happened? How are we so much over? It was so frustrating. And that's one of the hard parts about budgeting, is that you have to really know where you're at many times throughout the month so you know what you can spend and know that you're on track. So that's when I created the weekly check-in. And with the weekly check-in, you're basically just tracking expenses that you tend to either overspend or that you want to watch closely. So for example here, I'm tracking groceries, eating out, household, gas for our cars, and then anything that's unbudgeted. So what I do is I take a look at all of those expense tracking stickers in my monthly view, and I add up every single one of those stickers and I see how much we spent. So for example, this week for groceries, we spent $179.34. And then I take a look at our budget and I say, okay, we budgeted $500 for the month. So let's subtract $179 from that $500, and that means that we have $320.66 remaining. So that's how much we have remaining for the next, you know, whatever amount of weeks that we have left. I personally like to do it by week to see like, okay, we go grocery shopping usually every like Monday. So what does that mean in terms of every week? How much should we have left? So at that point we had $106.89 left every single week going forward. Of course, if we spent more for the second week, we would have less. But it just gives me a good idea of like where we're at, what we need to do going forward so that we're not over budget. So I do this every single week, and if you guys have watched my channel for a while, you probably know this. I do a weekly check-in where I sit down with you guys, I track my expenses, I fill these in, see where we're at, and it really helps to do this because then you're not like super surprised at the end of the month and thinking, what in the world happened? Again, it's just another check. It's another way to modify your spending, because if you know, okay, I only have like $100 left per week, and I normally have 125, that means you need to cut back. You need to have cheaper dinners. You can't buy steak that week. It just gives you a better idea of what to do. So that is definitely something that I suggest doing, especially if you're new. I have been doing budgeting this way for almost 4 years, like I said in the beginning, and I still do it because we need it. Like, we need to know how much we have left, and it really does help pinpoint some areas that like maybe you forgot you spent a lot of money on. So for household, we're already over budget by $3.34 as of week 1. So if I wouldn't have done this check-in, I wouldn't have known that. I honestly thought that we were in pretty good shape when it came to household, but you forget, like as you're spending money, you forget how much you spent on certain things. And so really sitting down, adding it up and looking at these numbers helps. So I definitely recommend doing the weekly check-in. Now, I cannot stress enough how important it is to track your expenses and not only create a budget, but also see how you actually did. So at the very end of the month, I fill in all of my actuals. And this really just applies to my variable expenses because fixed expenses will not change. But you can see in my budget, I have a budget column, I have an actual column, and then an over and under. So what I do is, every single month, at the very end of the month, I will add everything up and see how we actually did. So let's say, for example, our electric was $110. So that was $10 under budget. So that's great. But then there's gonna be times, like I said, household, we're already $3.34 over. So I would put, you know, what we spent here. I would put the fact that we were $3.34 under or over, I'll put that there. So that's the way that I like to personally fill out my budget. I feel like it helps to see where we're over. It also helps for future months because if you know, okay, consistently I'm over budget in groceries or over budget in household, you know that you're not being realistic and that you need to modify that. So for me, I've realized over the years that having groceries set at $75 per week for a family of 4, not realistic. We need $125. $125 per week is more realistic for us, and so we can stick to that better. But if you're trying to stick to a budget that's unrealistic, it's never gonna happen. You're just gonna be disappointed every single month. You're gonna be over budget every single month. And so I definitely recommend not only making sure that you're tracking your actual expenses, but also just try and be realistic when you're doing this, because again, if you're creating unrealistic expectations and budgets, you're always going to be over and you're not going to be accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish. So anyway, I will track my expenses. I'll see what we are over and under when it came to our budget, and then okay, I personally at this point, like, we paid off Jason's car. So right now, all of our extra money is going towards the mortgage. So if you're over by $400, that's $400 less that you're sending to the mortgage company to pay off the mortgage. If you are $400 over, that means $400 less towards your student loan payment or whatever goal you're working on. So it's really important to keep an eye on those, to keep an eye on your expenses. Try and stick to budget as much as possible so you're accomplishing the goals that you have set aside for that month. But I think that that's super important. I think it's super important, and it's not enough to just create a budget. You have to actually track your expenses, and you have to actually see how you did at the end of the month. So that is my budgeting process. That is what I do every single month. Again, at the very end of the month, I'll see how we did, and then I will send whatever amount of money we have left over towards our goal. So last month, all of our extra money went towards paying off Jason's car. This month in October, all of our extra money will be going towards an extra mortgage payment. But it depends on what you're working on. And that's why creating a budget is nice, because at the beginning of the month or right before the month starts, you can set aside, I want to put $400 towards an extra car payment or whatever it may be. So that is super important. And again, whatever you do in October, you can use whatever information that you find to create November's budget and kind of go forward. So that is my process. I did want to talk about sinking funds. So sinking funds, I think, confuse a lot of people. And if you saw my budget, you saw in my budget, I actually have sinking funds. So we, this month in October, put $1,100 into sinking funds. And that might seem like a lot. And trust me, when we first started, we did not have a sinking fund line item in our budget. But we do have sinking funds in our budget now. And sinking funds are basically just little savings accounts. And I get this question a lot, so I'm just going to address it really quickly. Our sinking funds, every single one of these are in one account, in one checking account. I keep track of the balances here. So this is why I do this, is so that I know, okay, whatever amount that I have in that account, so let's say it's probably close to $3,000 at this point if you add those two together, that $3,000 makes up all of these sinking funds. So what are sinking funds? They're basically little savings accounts, because at some point these things are gonna happen, and so you put a little bit of money aside every single month so that when these things come due or when you need to spend money on them, you have something set aside. You don't have to worry about blowing your budget. You don't have to, try and scramble and figure out where you're going to get the money from. It really is giving you permission to spend. So for us, we have beauty, which is like face wash, foundation, stuff for me. We have car insurance because we pay our car insurance every 6 months. And so we put, 1 month aside every single month so that when we have to pay 6 months worth of the car insurance, we have that set aside. We also save for car maintenance. So this could be for like oil changes, if we need a new battery for our car, new tires, anything like that. We also have car tags in Illinois. I'm not sure what it's like for the rest of the world, but in Illinois, we have to pay like yearly car tags. So we put a little bit aside every single month so that when those come due at, one point during the year, we have it. Cell phones, that's super confusing, so I'm not going to touch on that, but we do put a little bit of money aside for cell phones. And then you can see there's a lot of things. So like Christmas and gifts, we put $250 every single month for Christmas and gifts. So like birthday gifts and Christmas gifts, stuff like that. That way when Christmas comes or when someone's birthday comes, we never have to scramble and say, oh, now we are going to put less money towards the mortgage because now we have to pay like $20 for a gift. No, we have the money set here, so we never feel bad or like have to question whether or not we want to give a gift. It's an easy thing. We know we have money set aside. It's super simple. In December, so in a couple months when we're buying Christmas presents for family and for the girls, we're gonna have like close to $1,000 set aside. And it's super nice to know that we have that, but trust me, I am definitely going to be putting together a gifts budget, so I know that we're not gonna be over budget when it comes to Christmas gifts. We also set aside money for clothes for Jason, for the girls, for myself. We save for like entertainment and diapers, family pictures, because every year we like to get family pictures done. Jason has a golf sinking fund because he loves to go golfing, and so we put a little bit of money aside every single month so that when he wants to go golfing, he has something set aside for that. Home maintenance is a big thing. You never know when you're gonna have an appliance go out or when you need to get a new roof. So we save a tiny bit every single month so that when something comes due, we have it. And if we needed a new roof, which we won't, we just recently got a new roof, but if we needed a roof, obviously $300 is not gonna cover it, but having something small set aside for like the little things, like if you need a repair on your dryer or something like that, that is really the main reason for that. If something really big happened and we needed a ton of money, obviously that would be something that would come out of our budget for the month. And it would be unexpected, but we wouldn't be using an emergency fund or anything for that. We would obviously be able to cover that. But anyway, those are things that we put money aside for. For a long time, we were putting money aside for vacation. We normally do $250 for vacation every single month. We're kind of catching up from a current trip that we took like in August. So we're not putting anything towards that right now, but those are some of the things. And then you might see like trash in here and water. Those are bills that come due every 2 months or every 3 months. And so instead of having like $100 bill every couple of months, we set aside a third or a half of what we expect it to be. That way, when it comes due, it's not a big blow to our budget. It doesn't really affect our budget at all, because for me, I like our budget to be as smooth as possible. I don't like it to be like, okay, a ton of expenses one month and then very low expenses in another month. So doing sinking funds really helps with that. And I've talked about this before too. Having sinking funds really helps make our budget capture all of the expenses that we could possibly have. We don't have to worry about having a ton of unbudgeted expenses, because for the most part, anything that we want to do, if we want to take the girls to go to the pumpkin patch, that can be found in our entertainment fund. If I need to buy a new foundation, that will be beauty. If we want to get family pictures done, family pictures. If Jason wants to go golfing for the last time, this year, he can go golfing. That's fine. If we need a new fence because we have a storm come through that blows down our fence, bam, home maintenance. So a lot of the things that come up, you don't really have to worry so much about when you have sinking funds, because it should be covered a lot there, at least with us. And again, when I first started budgeting almost 4 years ago, we did not have sinking funds. I think it took maybe a year or so before we added sinking funds, and I really struggled with it because I'm like, I don't want to set all of this money aside for no reason and just have it sitting here. But then over the years, I've realized doing this really helps with budgeting, because I'm one of those people that I hate being over budget. I hate having unbudgeted expenses, and so doing this really does help. So hopefully that explains sinking funds. Again, it's really supposed to be for things that you don't necessarily have to spend every single month, but you want to set aside a small amount so that when it does come due, you have something. So anyway, that is my whole thing about sinking funds and budgeting. Let me know if you guys have any questions down below. Again, I try to really go through my entire process, but there's always going to be something that I forget to say or that I, didn't touch on. So if you have any questions, let me know. And again, if you want a link for the Color Street nails, if you want to sign up for Fetch Rewards, anything like that, I have links down below, so definitely check out those links, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.
We're falling out, we have reached disaster. Don't know where we're gonna be after. And we do it all again and again and again and again. Again and again and again and again.